From the streets of the Action City to the Alabama roller coaster, the iRacing IndyCar Series rolls on and follows the NTT IndyCar Series to the Barber Motorsports Park. This roller coaster of a track challenges its drivers, and today, with relatively cool conditions, we'll see if the action will intensify out on track. Arjuna Kankipati joined alongside by Lorenzo Bonder as he gets set to go racing. And Lorenzo, this is a staple on the IndyCar schedule and really one of the best tracks in North America.
Absolutely. I love Barber, but not only it's a fast track, it's a challenging track, and it has a little bit of everything that you can thrown out of the way. You know, roller coaster rides, flat portions, slow turns, fast turns. You got basically everything that you want in a racetrack.
And you see these shots from up above. It's a track that I think we are going to end up seeing as well. Some mistakes because of how challenging it is. Here's a look at the schedule as we kick off the back half of the season. It's a 12-round championship, but you're allowed to drop 4 of those rounds. Now, we split the 12 weeks into 7 road courses, 5 ovals. Next week, we're back on the ovals with Richmond, and all leading us to the month of May, Lorenzo, and what a blockbuster month it's going to be.
Oh, absolutely. We're all building up to Indianapolis. That's the race where everybody want to be. You know, the Indy 500 is looming large, but the schedule besides that, you go Motegi, Indy, GP, and Richmond, always good tracks for you to race on.
And let's take a look at how the championship is faring out, because we have really been talking about a bit of a breakaway too. Phil Krause and Adam Blocker split by just under about 50 points right now, and then almost 450 points back to Kevin Burrell. There are still some fights to keep your eye on. Connor Harrington is only 1 point clear of Agustin Canapino, but realistically at the front, Lorenzo, it's the 2 favorites that we would expect to see battling it out.
Absolutely. Phil and Adam just, basically, showing shoulders every race that they go on. Fast guys throughout the entire track. It's weird to see Malechka and also Burrell, being separated by 400 points despite being nearly halfway of the season. It's insane.
Let's talk about the track, I guess, in terms of what we'll talk about through tires and fuel. We will see drivers be able to do, around 26 or so laps. And I've already seen a couple of drivers struggling in qualifying. Connor Harrington's going to have to fight his way from the very back of the field in this 40-lap or so affair. Should be an interesting one, Lorenzo, especially given the cool temperatures that we've got for the drivers.
Absolutely. I was estimating the laps to be around 1.7 high to, 1.8, looking from the data packs and everything that are thrown out in the week for the drivers to take a look at and maybe tweak their setups. You briefly saw how the track conditions are, but never mind. Let's go to the grid because I know the race is going to be very exciting.
It should be a fun one, and they are ready to go and race. It'll be 40 laps here at the Alabama roller coaster, and we're qualifying in the books. Let's take you down trackside to see how they'll line up. And, well, it should be a fun one based on these qualifying times, because not just 27,000 splitting the front row with Phil Krause and Adam Blocker looking to fight for the championship alongside, and then Christian Hilgard in the satellite racing car, only 40,000 back. Should be quite fun. Kevin Burrell, his satellite racing teammate, will be alongside. And then 2 teammates also behind in the pair of Hydra Race Geodesic entries. John Bader for Brandon Roseborough, and then 7th for the Team Talent driver Andreas Ike. Matt Taylor will be rolling alongside him. Robin Malechka and then Rashad Craig, 9th and 10th positions, with Sam Karasala and then Brian Carey, 11th and 12th. David Porcelli hoping it's not unlucky, 13th. Jacob Oster rolls alongside. Said he had a bit of an issue in his qualifying lap, 1.2 or so off the pace. Blaze Andrick and then Brendan Lichtenberg, 15th and 16th, with Richard Holt, Luke Rosella. And then at the back of your field, in a monster field as well, 24 cars, Matt Shimiko, Nicholas Sudik, Shady Ahmad, Lucas Lodato, Connor Harrington, and Tristan Moss. Expected as well for some drivers at the back to have to try and carve their way on through. Going to be interesting to see which compound of tire they'll elect to start on.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the most intriguing races because we know the red tires, because of, you have so many fast spots that you're probably going to waste your tires on. They do not have a long longevity, but because we have a cold track per se, it might allow the track, the tires to survive a little bit more. I'm interested to see how the primary compound is going to build up in terms of heat, and then it kind of equals out to the green tires.
The drivers getting ready for what will also be a full formation lap, so some time for them to sit and stew as they get ready to go racing. Only a couple of drivers are going to choose to start on the alternate compound of tire. as they roll away, let's begin to talk you through exactly how that's all going to play itself on out. Kraus, Bader-for Porcelli, those are the drivers inside of the top 16 or so. That will start on the softer alternate compound. Shady Ahmad as well back in 21st. But interesting, Lorenzo, so many thinking the primary, the harder compound of tire, what they want to start on.
Yeah, and I want to see the gap between Kraus and Blocker right out of the gate, right? Because you have the disparity of grip early on, and I'm interested to see how much Kraus is going to be able to, clear himself off. But it should provide a very cerebral race between everybody, because we know, like I said before, this track is not easy for you to get around. You have to nail your lap every single time. The roller coaster is there, and the crashes can be plenty if you're just not paying attention.
Passing opportunities are, they exist here. It's not like they are few and far between, especially given that mistakes are probably going to be also at a premium. The question will end up being push-to-pass usage. You get 10 allotments of it over the course of the 40 laps. Don't have to just use it, though, in offense. Use it in defense, in reaction to drivers around you as well. Wondering how long the drivers will be able to go on the tires. Because it's cooler, of course, might be able to see Phil Kraus take those alternate tires as long as 26 laps. And one thing that's fun, Lorenzo, last week, Streets of Long Beach in the real and virtual world, we got to see the Waiuli alternate tires, the green sidewalls, in action. This time we're back on a regular road course, not a street course. It's the Reds.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, as these red tires, I think, for me, are very enticing for you to get on. We kind of have a little bit of the same grip level as a street tire does, but it's good to see they're bringing this different dynamic, in terms of what track you go on and which tire compound you're allotted to use.
Is it actually a physical compound difference? I thought it was just visual, to be honest.
I want to believe in the opposite. I want to, stay inside my conspiracy theories.
Gotcha. Well, here we go. Driver's going to head out of that final sector, and we've seen some classic fights at the front between Phil Kraus and Adam Blocker, and with a championship on the line between them, what's going to happen with a slight mix in terms of strategies? Can Kraus break away on the softer alternate compound tire? Can Adam Blocker peg him back? We're about to find out here at the Barber Motorsports Park. Back-to-back weeks of racing for the NTT IndyCar Series. We continue flying in the iRacing IndyCar Series, and as they streak down through the opening corner, look at the advantage from Phil Kraus, and Adam Blocker dips 2 tires into the grass, so deep into the braking zone. A couple of cars almost follow him as well. I think it was Richard Holt that ran a little bit deep in the black and green entry, but rise up the crest, the long right-hander, so easy for the rear end to get unsettled, and then stomp onto the brakes. Bader-for trying to get to the inside of a couple of machines. He squeaks past Birel, and now his teammate Brandon Roseborough is going to try and follow.
Yeah, not only that, I nearly saw 3 wide at the back. Actually, we're seeing 3 wide at the back being formed between, I think, Rosella Andrich and also Osser as they going through the roller coaster and everything. Just, no major drama so far, as Kraus has already 1 second over Adam Blocker.
No one has used the push-to-pass, as you'd kind of expect, with the exception of Shady Ahmad down the back of the field. Now, Robert Malechka has run off the track, and that's a very fast place to do so. He's had a hellacious incident, and it might have caused a bit more separation through the rest of the field. You see Matt Taylor, David Porcelli through the long right-hander at the end of the lap, winding back to the line, battling. But as Phil Kraus exits from the scene of the fighting for second place, 1.5 seconds clear at the end of the opening lap.
Absolutely, and it's insane to think about the Hilgar's evolution in terms of, not driving Indy cars, but in general, just his driving style of being adapted from, prototypes and everything else. Same for John Bader-for. John is going to try the inside, making better usage of those alternate compounds.
It's a chance for him to now work forward, but already he's been held up probably a second or so more than he would have liked to, and gets past 1. Next in line is going to be Adam Blocker. The team talent machine of Andreas Eich as they run down in towards that museum section of the track. Very interesting complex as well to navigate your way through. Incident for Malechka has seen the car separate out. This is Bader-for's look. You see how much more speed, how much more grip and confidence he has, but this is where you'll see it from Blocker as well. Just the confidence in his own ability on the tires to roll the speed through the corner. Where does John Bader-for set this up?
Yeah, I think he's gonna either have to be on a really good run over here on the final corner, going to turn number 1, or then selling himself into turn number 5. I think that's the premier place for you to do an overtake here at Barber.
You can see this long sweeping run out of turn 2 down the hill, so easy to be in trouble on power, but you can see Badeford using the button, and I don't think that Blocker can really afford to defend too much here and cost each other more time. Badeford slips on through in the black and gold entry for Hydra Race Geodesic Racing, but now 3 seconds behind your race leader. His task closed to Phil Kraus.
Absolutely. Gap is extended by 3 seconds nearly, as Kraus trying to do his best to, accrue as big as of a gap he can actually do before switching to the primary compounds and then, being on the back foot this time around. But really good start between everybody. Like we normally expect sometimes Barber to be chaotic because you can go side by side and you have these elevation changes and everything. But it's been very mild and composed between everybody.
Rashad Craig's battling in the Indy Alliance racing car. David Porcelli is just slid on through, and next in line could potentially be the likes of Sam Carasala and Matt Taylor, although they're squabbling amongst each other. Brian Carey's riding behind and wondering, what can I do to try and avoid losing too much more time? I've got the worm man Jacob Oster screwing behind me too. Carasala's going to have a jink to the inside, down through the opening corner. That's a very fast corner to try and make it work. He'll be hung out to dry the long way around, down through turn 2, but confidence in that Team Watson racing machine. Gets on the power nice and early, and as much as the MadWorks car slithers through the long right-hand crest, Carasala grabs 10th.
Wow, nice move. You can even see at the back right there. I think that is Brian Carey that is trying to attempt a move on Jacob Oster right there, or is it all the way around? I think it's Jacob trying to move, right?
Jacob Oster gets past Brian Carey, and some push-to-passes being used as well, as the puff of smoke indicates how much of the brakes being locked as well from the drivers in this little battle pack. Check back in at the front of the field, where we're going to come to the end of lap 4, this time by Kraus. Still only around 3 seconds clear of Badeford. Adam Blocker now a full second back from the next car up the road. Remember, this is the top of the queue where we're seeing the different tire strategies.
Yeah, not only that, we kind of expected those to be at the front, maybe try something a little bit more different, and I think that's what Kraus and Badeford might be trying to do. Also, I'm wondering how light the car are, because maybe that short stint might be aiding a little bit Kraus and Badeford to be able to break away from Blocker and Hilgar and Roseboro and everybody else. That this lighter strategy might be at best, as the track is going to pick up some heat as the race goes on by.
Plenty of battling through the field as well, not just up towards the front, but of course in that battle pack with the likes of Carasala. While we keep an eye on them, let's go back to take a look at, well, unfortunate for Robert Malechka, but the end of his race, just that's not even the curb. That car just gets unsettled and then bang into the wall.
Yeah, can we also maybe attribute this to cold tires as well? Because the primary compound on lap 1 usually it can be a dancing on an ice rink of sorts.
And probably compounded, pun intended, by the fact that the temperature's relatively cool. So wonder if Malechka just not having his tires exactly where he would have wanted them to be. Let's take another look at it from the off-board shot. Not much fighting happening as we continue to track the fighting for 10th on back. Carasala breaking away from Taylor. Yeah, just the rear end stepping out, and he's going to take no more part of this race.
No, that's the hard nature of Barber. Compared to Long Beach lap times. It's funny for us to talk about two tracks that drive differently, but the lap times are the same, and I think the distance between them is relatively nearly all the same. But it's safe to think about, how, the difficulty level rises from Long Beach to Barber in just 1 week.
Yeah, and I guess the setup's very, very different. You have to contend with less bumpy track here, I'm sure, than the streets of Long Beach, even as though I'm sure this is a relatively bumpy surface. It just cannot compare to a street racing facility that doesn't get paved like they do for Formula One. So just keep that in mind. Kevin Burrell puts the pressure on to Brandon Roseborough, right on board with him. He's not used a single one of his push to passes just yet, neither has Roseborough. Problem here being, of course, with the implementation of push to pass that we have, the 10 usages rather than the second based allotment that they have in the real world, Lorenzo, it means that you're basically just limited to one place that you can use it, and it's here on the run down into Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, and you're gonna see Burrell being conservative about it. I think they're gonna save all the way to the tail end, where I think those who go on the alternative compounds are gonna try to mimic themselves to equalize with the push to pass, the lap delta, and try to find an overtaking spot. That's usually the way for you to go, unless you find an opening. That's when you can attribute and basically use it as max as you want that push to pass. But it's going to be an interesting one if we ever implement this time-based system rather than the usage-based system.
Word from pit lane is that Phil Krause started on full fuel and was slightly caught out, in fact, by the other drivers around him starting on the primaries and not on the alternates. So going to be curious to see if he will go going 25, 26 laps as indicated is possible on the full fuel tank, or if he's going to try something slightly different. The team talent driver, Andreas Eick, feels the pressure from David Porcelli, and it's all as in the back of the field. Bit of chaos, and it's Brian Carey. It's more bad fortune for him. It's Luke Rosella that's mixed up, and I'm not sure who takes to the grass. That's Shady Ahmad. But slip-ups through the penultimate and final corner.
Yeah, and that final corner uphill right-hander, the braking is a little bit tricky for you to nail. I think he's going to lose a spot right there. Nearly lost a spot to Shimko. I think Shimko had to back out on the overtake on the turn number 1. But wondering if there's any damage in the car that you can basically think, I have to bring this back to pit lane a little bit earlier than usual.
Let's go take a look at what happened to Brian Carey, who's on the grass. Car pitches around, and then nowhere really for the car behind to really go. And so, unfortunately, Luke Rosella runs into the rear wing and gets detached and dislodged. And as we saw, Shady Ahmad ends up starting to find his way on forward. Take a look at those conditions again, because 41 degrees Celsius, 29 degrees in the air. It's still relatively warm despite looking quite grey and grimy and overcast in terms of cloud conditions.
I want to believe, again, Lorenzo conspiracy theories, this might be, the second coming of rain tires for IndyCars. I would be completely for it, but interesting to see the perspective of overcast and 41 degrees. It's insane to think about that.
Right, yeah, it's a surprise. Although I guess in the south you actually do see relatively warm summers. David Porcelli finally gets the move done, slides his way on past Team Talent's Andreas Eichen. I wonder if it will be Rashad Craig in the Indy Alliance racing machine behind that is able to fight his way on forward. That was a nice and easily executed move, and David Porcelli's satellite racing counterpart, Kevin Burrell, still saving his push to passes for the most part, although he has used one. Left side of the screen, Lorenzo, you'll see, remember, 10 usages, what they all start with. Most cars haven't touched it just yet.
Yeah, and I think it's the nature of, not pushing the car around, not forcing, the fuel gain numbers. I think also this has a little bit of fuel gain. Maybe an overcut might be on the books over here for some of the drivers, especially with the primary tires, being on paper the better tire. As the tire life goes on, its stint life goes on. So interested to see who more
Absolutely. We'll be very, very curious to see how that all plays out. But as they head towards the quarter distance mark of this race, still plenty of those push to passes left in reserve. Well, 2.5 seconds the gap up front. So John Baderfer is very much starting to bring that gap in. We'll see if still not even halfway through this fuel window, there will be the chance for Baderfer to close on up. Although it's still, of course, long way to go in this race. We'll keep an eye on the various battles, though, because as much as we'd love to just track those up front, good fighting through the field, and something that I'm sure is the case in both of the splits that we have here today. I did see there were 2 splits going. This strength of field up to about 4,000 strength of 4,000 SOF, not bad by any means. And as Brendan Lichtenberg, the hyperstar, feels the pressure from Richard Holt behind, it's all as they come to the end of lap number 10. 6 seconds from those up the road. Connor Harrington's had a very, very decent charge through the field so far. 10 positions gained, and Lorenzo, he's up into 13.
Yeah, doing a really good race. Started starting for the back is normally a thing that you normally don't see for Connor, and I think just took his patience, found the strides, and so far the biggest mover in the field is alongside David Porcelli. Only the difference is 4 places for Connor in terms of difference.
Primary tires for him, only alternates up, of course, for 4, now 5 drivers, because Brian Carey's gone back out there on the alternates for a little bit of fun, but still just waiting to see when that crossover point is going to start being reached, because Blocker did a 108.8 last time by. This time it's a 109, but that was slightly quicker than Phil Kraus, so we will just have to keep in mind 10 laps in, have we already seen that critical delta? Well, Adam Blocker start to close up to the back of John Badefer, and is that going to signal the pit sequence to end up opening up? See at the bottom of your screen, Lorenzo, how the lap times have compared in the last 3 laps.
Yeah, marginal gains for Blocker, but every gain is something that you have to consider on. It's funny, he also John putting drawbacks to Long Beach, how the tire life for the alternate tires dips out so much quicker than Long Beach does. If you saw, Long Beach basically was nearly a full stint on the alternates that you could do it without major problems on it, which was insane to think about it when I did my stints for practice.
Yeah, no, that was fun with, in some ways, Long Beach, although it is also nice when you have a slightly bigger fuel window. We just had so much chaos a week ago that we were never lacking for entertainment. What's this next lap going to compared for Blocker as he comes to line? 2/10 quicker, so he is definitely in that crucial crossover window. Would not be surprised if we do end up seeing Phil Kraus in before the 20-lap marker. Because he's put full fuel in, though, Lorenzo, he was caught napping slightly. I wonder what's going through his mind right now.
It's going to be interesting as we look into the bottom right of the screen, the full track map with all the cars driving around. I don't think Blocker is feeling the pressure way too much. I mean, he won at last time they went into Barber was at Indy Elite. He actually won Indy Elite, so and he won by a considerable gap over Trano. So it's an interesting dynamic that Blocker. I think he's confident on the setup and he can push it all the way.
Yeah, you say comfortable on the setup, but Robert Malechka just sent a message out in the Power Slide Discord saying that Adam Blocker had suggested to start with the anti-roll bar set in a very specific way. Rob said, no, I'm not a coward. Insert another word there that's not suitable for broadcast. And then Rob Malechka dies on lap 1. That's all that needs to really be said. Still, though, 4 cars within just about 5 seconds. Phil Kraus is leading, but it's not dominance by any means. Satellite Racing's Hilgard is there and very much keeping a Blocker and Badefer honest. And Brandon Roseburg feels the pressure from one of the other Satellite Racing entries further back in the field. Dirty air here, Lorenzo, is also painful, so I'm not surprised to see the gap starting to build up. We don't have too many close battles because at this point, with tires really starting to wear, understeer will be a problem.
Yeah, 100%, and maybe also a little bit of snap oversteer when you come out of these low corners, right? I think it can be a little bit of an issue, especially if you are in an engine map like Engine Map 1 or Engine Map 6, where the modularity can adjust to the turbo a little bit more than usual, as we look into Jacob Oster's cockpit perspective. And this is one of the corners that you can have a little bit of a dirty aero push, and here as well, so you drive different lanes so you can avoid the best doing that.
A bit wide for Oster, may have kicked up a bit of grass and racked up a 1x for his efforts there too, but Taylor a little bit of understeer out through the penultimate corner. Bit of a wiggle then for Oster as he tries to get the power down, and had to be a bit more patient than I think he would have wanted to, but still yet to use his push to pass to try and make the move happen here. He'll just open up the entry into the corner in the green and gold i5G entry, powered by Demerit engines, of course. His teammate Brendan Lichtenberg just lost out to Richard Holt, has lost out to Luke Rosella as well, but up here, no movement as they ride 15 laps into this race, Lorenzo, nearing, of course, the halfway mark.
Yeah, we're nearing the point also. Maybe, can we even say pit window might be actually open? I think that in 2 laps or so, if those who are in alternate strategy, on the alternate compound, underfield a little bit, can actually come in and go for a full run in the in the primary tires, so it's going to be a little bit interesting. And I was going to mention Connor on it. It basically faster, but nearly a full second the last time out.
Take a look at what happened to the Hyperstar out through the final corner. We've been talking about understeer. Now, he had no cars in front of him, so didn't even have the excuse of dirty air, but just a bit too optimistic on the throttle. And as Matt Taylor does indeed come into pit lane, Jacob Oster stays out there. So clearly Taylor thinks that he can make the alternates last for a good 24 laps.
Can he, though? That's an overconfidence. Don't get me wrong. If there's one guy who improved, I think, massively, you might agree with me. I think on the past 2 years or so of following him, especially in the days of Lionheart in road race, he might be Matt. But I don't know if I can actually make it 24 or 25 laps lasting on those alternate compounds and be consistent on it.
So Phil Kraus still leads by 2.7, but John Badefer has now been caught by Adam Blocker, who's within 3 seconds of your race leader. Look how more confident he is through that penultimate right-hander. Just has the grip still in his tires, even though, of course, they start with a little less grip. They wear off a little bit more steadily, and last lap by, he was more than half a second quicker than the Hydro Race Geodesic racing car he's chasing down. Main problem is he was only a couple of tenths quicker than Phil Kraus.
Yeah, lap is 109 and 109.1 for Phil Kraus, as you can see right down on the bottom of the screen. Just 0.2 of a second is again marginal, but he's starting to reach up. I think Phil's starting to feel the pressure a little bit, driving more honest. But the problem is reaching Beta 4 is one thing, overtakes a whole different story.
And he almost runs into the back of that Hydro Race Geodesic racing car. That rear wing got very, very big for a second, and just naturally the track falls away from you and you lock that right front up, and Blocker very lucky not to run into the back end and make any contact with the car he's battling with. And this is where you, on both sides, have to wonder, how much do you want to attack? How much do you want to defend? And once again, Blocker on the binders very, very aggressively to avoid making contact. Phil Kraus is going to cross the line, a 109.249. For Badefer, a 109.484. Blocker had closed for almost 10 consecutive laps, and now 1 lap stuck behind Badefer. It's 2 crucial tenths that he's already lost.
And not only that, it looks on the visual as well as Blocker is on the push to pass. He's going to make the move. Hilgard's on it.
He's getting to the inside. He'll throw the lunge, but he'll smoke the inside front. Gives the chance for Badefer to crisscross back underneath. And you can see Blocker wiggling on exit. Has to use his push to pass. A second one on the same lap to get the drive off the corner. And he'll go deep down into the museum corner. Gets it wound down in time. Lorenzo, a great opportunistic pass. And now will try and break away.
Yeah, he needs to, because Hilgard is probably one of the fastest guys around the track, and he was catching up basically by full second because of him being stuck right behind John Badefor's wing. Now the ball is on Hilgard's court. What the satellite driver is going to do, and where does he find the opening?
Whoa, not through the penultimate corner, surely. This is great stuff. I love the fact that we've got the split tire calls, because it will, of course, switch back towards the end, you would assume. Satellite racing car not going to be able to force the issue, though. It will have to wait, and we are seeing pit stops. Kevin Burrell's going to come down. Have already seen David Porcelli make his trip to the lane as well. Will Hilgard think he needs to use a push to pass like Blocker? Yes, he will. A bit more patient, though, in how early he uses it. Doesn't want the rear tires to light up, and it means he's not alongside into the braking zone. A wide arc on entry from Badefer, and the Hydro Race Geodesic racing machine power down, but with a push to pass to defend against now, because Hilgard's using another one into turn 7, and side by side, remarkable stuff. Confidence on both sides, but bravery from Hilgard to get a podium spot here at Barber.
Nice move from Hilgard. That is commitment. I thought they were actually going to maybe crashing into the roller coaster, which is insane to think about, and the commitment from him to get around the outside and get the lines for you to do the overtake. And great respect from Beta for it as well. We got to give him props.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this. I really am. Sometimes this track can under-deliver. Right now, it feels like it's over-delivering. David Porcelli and Matt Taylor, 2 drivers that have both pitted, fighting now wheel to wheel and on alternate compound tires. Remember, Taylor has got to make those alternate last for a long, long time, as here comes the pit lane, the Hydro Race Geodesic racing driver of John Badefer.
Yeah, Taylor not being able to make the overtake as we're looking at the bottom of the screen. Baderford is going to come for those primaries. There you go. And basically be now setting for a massive 20-lap stint on his car.
Where's he going to feed out? There goes Blaze Andrick. No one else. That's perfect for him. So not totally clean air, but as good as you could hope for. Now Kevin Burrell is on the alternate tires and 8 seconds back from Baderford. So that's a bit of a margin to keep an eye on. When does it stabilize? Does it end up stabilizing? Front of the field, half race distance this time by. Phil Krause not coming down to pit lane. He's a lot tighter through that penultimate corner than we were seeing from Baderford, who was struggling at the end of his run. What's the time going to be for him at the line? A 109.601. Blocker a full second faster that last time by.
Can we say he's starting to get a little bit dicey for Krause?
It will switch back at the end, I guess. We are officially halfway through this race. I'll be honest, no idea which of the strategies is a winning one. All I know is the fight for 15th position now continues to rumble on, this time with Connor Harrington being dropped into it. And guess what? He's on the alternate tires, which will fire up very quickly.
Absolutely not being able to make the overtake. Got around Matt Taylor, though, but Sally doing a stout, defensive effort to keep both drivers at bay. For now, he's going to survive the ordeal, but where does he find the opening to keep on surviving the whole assault from the private label team hype driver?
And again, we will try and just keep an eye on these battles, but timing.racespot.tv, if you're trying to follow a particular driver, that is your best bet. And here we go, finally time for the split. Krause will be on in, exactly 21 laps complete. It was a pretty aggressive pit entry, but the cones are not, and the limiter line is not until well down through the chicane. Effectively, you navigate your way through. Is he going to emerge a couple of seconds clear of John Baderford, who did, of course, get dropped behind Blaze Andrick? Can Phil Krause get that margin he wants to get some clean air?
Interesting. My only question, Arjuna, I think he dabbed the wall a little bit on the outside when he actually was braking to make it into the entry of pit lane.
8.1 seconds stop, so it doesn't have to wait too long, and he is going to be well clear of Blaze Andrick and John Baderford. His margin back to the Hydro Race Geodesic driver, even with a slightly longer pit stop, marginally longer pit stop, we're talking tenths of a second, is a good 4.5 full seconds. So advantage to Krause in some ways. How long does Blocker stay out? Surely he stays out until his fuel tank's empty.
Oh, 100%. He's going to run out that fuel tank dry, and I think how many laps, give or take, Arjuna? Like 3 more laps for Blocker before he comes in?
If we're being told a maximum of 26, I guess you factor in the full formation lap, you're probably not saving too much fuel if you're Blocker. Yeah, probably come in at the end of 26.
Interesting how some of these drivers are also leaving this as a thermometer for the Indy iRacing series that they have during the week, as well. They're going to go for a 100% distance around Barber.
Yeah, it's a great point. We talked about it with Long Beach as well, right? You have these races which are, intense in their own right, but still relatively short compared to the full-length races. 40 laps for us, and I'm going to have to go and consult a quick Google search for how many laps they'll do in the Children's of Alabama Indy Grand Prix. That's a wonderful race name. 90 laps in the full race this weekend, Lorenzo. That's more than double what we've got here.
Good luck for those who try to make it 90. I'll try, but I don't know if I can make it 90 laps around Barber. I don't have that skill.
I think we should make a plea to iRacing to make the IIS race a little bit shorter, just so we can get to the end. Although, those that want to suffer will argue that let's leave it as is. Fastest lap of the race, by the way, was set by Phil Krause. I wonder if when Adam Blocker emerges on the primary compound, alternate compound of tar after shedding the primaries, will he have a chance to respond? Kevin Burrell's been burning through his push-to-passes. He's down to 5 left to use through the back half of this race. Lorenzo, you can see the usage on the left-hand side. Interesting that Phil Krause has yet to use it. He may be saving it for a battle out on track.
Yeah, 100%, and also more interesting. I don't know. Adam a little bit more than I do. using 7-0 here. Kraus on the first one to try to, equalize the pace. Blocker using 2 already early on in the race. I know he's a late user. Is a little bit surprising in my opinion.
They used those 2, of course, when they made the pass on John Bader for 1 to get alongside the other, then to make the move actually count on the run down into this corner. You can see how much Phil Kraus straight lines as well. And Christian Hylgaard is going to come in towards the pit lane now. So he'll come in at the end of what is lap 24. Hypothetically, you can go 2 laps longer. And Adam Blocker did do a 108.542 last time by. What did Phil Kraus set? A 108.504. Even with that push to pass Lorenzo. We'll see what he does this time by, but Blocker's not losing time by extending the run.
No, he's not, and I think more importantly, he might actually get in front. The gap is 26 seconds. His pit stop is going to relatively be short if he comes in this time around. I estimate about 25-ish, 25, 24, so he's going to be really close to Kraus.
And Christian Hylgaard comes out in front of John Baderfer, so that's a sign that I think John Baderfer's strategy not quite working the way that he would have anticipated, with, of course, some good track position at one point to fight with. Here is the look back with Brendan Lichtenberg and Andreas Eich in the Team Talent and Team i5G machines. Adam Blocker has just come down on towards pit lane, and we'll be able to keep our eyes on him as well. But let's just keep an eye quickly on whether Andreas Eich's going to be able to take a look down into Charlotte's Web, downhill braking zone. But no, Brendan Lichtenberg gets it stopped in time. Blocker, though, going to be onto the alternate tires and hoping to be clear of Phil Kraus.
Yeah, a gap already of 14 seconds. This is going to be, like I said, short pit stop for Blocker, rather. And you can see Kraus right there. It's going to be closer, Juna, I'll tell you.
Pretty smooth hands, but as Kraus powers down across the line, Blocker is about to release himself from the limiter and emerge in the race lead, but only momentarily because Kraus is there. Kraus is on the inside, but tires will fire up very, very quickly for Adam Blocker. Not going to matter though. Phil Kraus holds on. Less than 0.3 of a second between them, and now wheel-to-wheel action to be expected between the championship protagonists.
Yeah, absolutely. We know Blocker's tires are going to be a little bit understeery at the start because that's just a natural thing of the alternates to do, so you have to counteract that. But once it picks up, maybe after the end of this lap, this is where Kraus might actually find himself in a lot of trouble. Fending off Blocker and fending off, might even say, Hylgaard and Baderfor are not far away from both of them.
Only one driver is yet to pit, and it is Brendan Lichtenberg, and he's really under fire now as Andreas Eich bullies his way on through. And Connor Harrington follow. He's on the push to pass. In fact, both Eich and Lichtenberg are as well. 3 wide as we fan out into turn 7. Connor Harrington into the side of the Hyperstar, and as he bounces down, more contact between them. Surely a slowdown to boot. And guess who cycles through? Thank you very much. Jacob Oser slithers his way to 10th position.
Rivalries can ignite the passion within people sometimes.
Connor Harrington went for a move that, let's be honest, maybe a bit aggressive to go 3 wide into a corner where you don't even want to be too wide, but check back in with his teammate. Coming towards the line, they'll come towards what I think is 13 to go. 14 laps for Phil Kraus to hold on, but it's really not 14 laps, is it? It's however many laps of good tire life that Adam Blocker's got in the alternates.
I think give or take he has, 7, 8 laps-ish in those tires before maybe Kraus.
Phil Kraus runs wide, and through the very fastest section of the track, they'll be side by side down the hill. Kraus holds on, but Lorenzo, what a moment.
Ooh, I honestly thought the door was going to open up for Blocker trying to make a move, but I think he played it smart right there. Lift it off a little bit, let Kraus go on through, and avoid death at the roller coaster going upwards.
Remember, this is a pretty decent number of points up for grab. The iRacing point system determined by the strength of field, the relative strength of the drivers in this race, and Monday nights do tend to be pretty strong. We had about 4,700 our strength of field. Both drivers on the button. Hylgaard as well. He's 1.6 back and hoping to try and close as they continue to juke. Blocker the long way around. That's not going to work. Can he cross it back underneath though? Will he use another push to pass? Yes, he will. Kraus late on the response. This is fantastic stuff. Wheel to wheel once more. The power slide driver backs out, and it will be 3 at the front. Satellite Racing going to join the party.
Oh, absolutely. Hello, Christian Helgard.
No!
Welcome to the party. No.
Oh my heavens, Lorenzo, this is wild. Hilgard with the mistake, and now back to pit lane.
Wow, what has happened to Hilgard?
Well, being a bit too bold, a bit too aggressive, it all comes unstuck, and I will be honest, I'm a bit surprised. He blew the engine! And in the live picture, Blocker and Kraus side by side. I'm genuinely speechless. Wheel to wheel, Kraus the long way around, and two rivals giving each other just enough room that they can continue this fight down out of turn number 2. Blocker with the grip on the tires, Blocker with the confidence, and Blocker with the race lead.
And now Blocker on the push to pass to try to break away and solidify the lead, but Kraus is right on it, and he's going to have the tire life as their stint goes on. 12 laps to go, and how do you blow up an engine just like that? I'm burning my head up.
I don't want to Lance Stroll us here, but I think we've got to try and take another look at this and just listen. It goes into neutral for a while rather than going into gear. That's the only thing that looks slightly weird. I've never seen that before.
I've never seen that before.
I've blown an engine before as well. Ooh! Could he have overheated his engine?
Can you do that?
Oh, yes. Yes, you can.
Well, which spot though? Here on the corkscrew?
When you overheat the engine, it will just blow. If it's just being revved too much, too hard. If you don't have enough radiator cooling, I wonder if he's just being a bit too aggressive, especially if maybe they expected cooler conditions. Well, back in the pack, still fighting going on. I think Adam Blocker's going to try and check out, and maybe the closing stages of this race, he might be reeled back in. Brendan Lichtenberg, 29 laps, Lorenzo, finally comes down to the lane.
Lichtenberg is already trying Indy 500 strats in a road track. Well done.
It's a long, long stint for him as he rolls into the lane. Check in with your race leader. Doesn't have the fastest lap. That, of course, is now going to stay, you'd assume, with Phil Kraus, the 107.813. What will the time be this time by, now that Blocker's had clean air, albeit 4 laps on his tires as well, in the Snapper Blue, as I think he's described it. Powerslide Motorsports machine. A 107.951. He got close to the fastest lap. He was still a full second or so faster than Phil Kraus.
Yeah, my only question is if that, like you said, can last forever. 1 second, 8/10 of a second, nearly 2 seconds accrued on the last 2 laps, 2 seconds total in the last 3. It's going to be tough for Kraus, but then again, those red compounds are going to be in a world of pain, even with the push to pass. Like, let's just say with 7-6 to go.
I'm having to gather myself, Lorenzo. We've commentated on a lot of these IndyCar races. I mean, I still remember when Phil Kraus ISOWC Road America, exit of turn 1, him and Alexander Walton. That blew my mind.
Yep.
I was telling people about all the races we've had at Phillip Island here on Monday nights with the IndyCars, heading into VCO Infinity this weekend, because some races we spent more time looking at replays than we have watching the live footage.
Yes.
This still, it may rank up there as one of the best races we've ever had.
Absolutely, 100%. And of all tracks, one of the most underappreciated tracks in IndyCar calendar. I know some people don't love Barber. I love Barber. I think Barber, it's a very good track. It's just highly technical. It is a hard track, but that's why it makes so lovable.
You can just see there, right?
Drive.
Like the elevation plunge down into the braking zone at turn 5.
Yeah, 100%. That's what makes it fun, because you just have, like I said, everything. You have slow corners, fast corners, lots of elevation changes, tricky corners like over here on the corkscrew. So that's what makes it enticing. It's basically a driver's track that Alan Wilson made a long time ago.
And of course, just behind turn 7 on the exit, there's the motorcycle museum, which has apparently one of the most interesting collections of any two-wheel variety in the world. And at one point, I would very much like to go and see that. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum is great for four-wheelers, but we're very curious to go and see what that's all about. On board with Phil Krause as he heads back towards the line. 4 push-to-passes left to use. There'll be 8 laps to go for your drivers as they work their way back around. Has been one more incident out on track. It's not like everyone's gotten through this race scot-free. We have had Connor Harrington, Shady Ahmad, Tristan Moss, Matt Shimko, Robert Malechka retired. I think now joined by Blaze Andrick, wondering what happened to him. Has he blown up as well?
Please don't tell me he's blown up as well.
He's got no gear.
Is he saving? No fuel?
Okay, one more listen from slightly further behind. Oh.
Oh no.
So what I'm going to make an assumption here is there's a setup shop setup that is being potentially used as well. That might have a bit too much radiator in play.
I'm wondering which shop it is, but I would not go into that.
No, we don't need to. And again, I've experienced that at Watkins Glen personally when I was fighting my teammate Adam Blocker and Henry Bennett up towards the front, and I had a GP2 moment, a GP2 engine moment rather. So it's very possible to happen, and that's why you always kind of want to be on the safer side rather than try and risk it. The only time that you're really trying to maximize your performance in terms of the engine is somewhere like, IndyQ, where it's those radiator vents are also, restricting increasing the amount of drag and aero disruption that you have. So not so important around a track like this, I'd argue.
No, it is not. Even though it is a bumpy track and you have this, like, what can you say, old school like curbs, because they're not a modern curbs per se. It's just a little bit of a weird thing for you to go on. That's what makes, I think, this track a little bit more, old-fashioned, old school, the more interesting for you to race on than probably potentially other tracks that you have on the calendar. And normally radiator wouldn't be an issue. I'm just slightly surprised.
That move, by the way, between Adam Blocker and Phil Krause, not going to see too many more moves better than that, I'd argue, and probably wager over the course of 2024. Very much looking forward to, though, seeing these drivers back out on track in plenty more road races, because we missed this a lot last year. It's nice to have it back. While it's settled down into a bit of a rhythm, Lorenzo, no cars within a second of one another, let's just go watch some of that fighting once again.
Yeah.
Some great stuff between them. You can see how close they were holding each other, Lorenzo. These are two drivers that knew how much they could lean on one another, because I don't think they'd try that with anyone else down through the opening quarter.
No, absolutely not. I think they would have taken this more, cautiously if it were another driver. And, they know each other very well, right? They've raced against each other for how many years now, Arjuna? 5-6 years already? I would say wager even maybe more than that.
Something like that at the very least, that is for sure. I mean, these aerial shots won't do it justice, but that first corner, it's such a downhill slide. The commitment on both sides, it is to be commended. 5 to go, and as mentioned, no cars within a second of one another. However, a couple of cars starting to close on one another as Rashad Craig is being closed on by Sam Karasala. Jacob Oster a little bit closer to the back of the Team Watson Racing machine. Oh, not much longer, though. He loops it. Can he do a 360 and hold it? Yes, he can. He'll drop, though, outside of the top 10.
I would argue that's a 270 nose scope to 360 nose scope, but it's okay.
Stays in the top 10 as well. I thought David Porcelli was a little bit closer. Oh, Barber's great. If this is a 40-lap race as well, Lorenzo, can you imagine what will happen in a 90-lap race?
I can't, and I'm already, and I need to get my laps in for IIS. I missed out on Long Beach. I truly regret that. I need to get myself on Barber. Even I might lose iRating, but it's just enjoyment of driving this track. I missed out on needing Elite too, and I need to get my Barber, fix on it.
check back in with your race leader as Adam Blocker is behind a little bit of traffic. It's the 22 machine of Richard Holt who cover the outside, let Blocker slip up through the inside, and with 3.5 odd laps to go, that gap 2.6 seconds. Now, Blocker has only been on the alternates for 11 laps, Lorenzo. He has started to see a bit of fall off, albeit not that much.
Yeah, what surprises me is the level of consistency he's on those A5s. Even though Krause is now starting to hammer down those push to passes to get closer and closer to him.
Still 2 push to passes left after this one has been used for Krause in the private label Team Hype machine. Very precise, very, very aggressive with how much track to cut at all times as well. But slowly losing out. They have just put a lap on the likes of Nick Sudik and Brendan Lichtenberg, who with 3 laps to go, Lorenzo, are actually fighting.
Oh, nice. Good to see Sudik try to, battle a little bit on roadside. You could see him, getting away from those oval fakes to open side. And the Hyperstar on it. He's hunting down like a hungry dog, looking for that beefsteak.
And if you are a bit high on temps, as Lichtenberg almost lights up the rear tires just as we saw Jacob Oster do. If you are high on temps, then you don't want to use a push to pass necessarily either. Just getting word as well that there are some other drivers in other splits also seeing blown engines, so that's something that they're all going to learn from and take forward into the future races, not just in that iRacing IndyCar series that we mentioned with the 90-lap affairs potentially, but with the rest of the races here on the iRacing IndyCar Open Series, the 40-lap affairs that we're going to see. Brendan Lichtenberg in the grass and all as pressure builds from a bit of lap traffic behind. The HydroRace Geodesic Racing driver going to make his way on forward, and with 2 laps to go, Adam Blocker continues to hold the gap up front. Last lap, in fact, increased the margin by 0.3 of a second. That's
the difference of, someone that knows how to drive a car and make massive usage of the alternative compounds than a guy like me who's a commentator. It's insane what these guys do on alternates. Not only have we seen that in VCO Infinity, but also other races, just the level of consistency they do, especially with the alternates, to avoid the gap loss to the primaries is just something that has to be commended.
On board with Krause, you can see the dash light up. You can see the tower lighting up as well, as plenty of the drivers are using those closing push to passes available to them. Krause isn't giving up, that is for sure. He wants to be in position just in case anything does happen. But as we come back around to see what will be the white flag, of course, Adam Blocker will be flying out to the Barber Motorsports Park to be on the crew with Agustin Canapino. Canapino not joining us tonight, but we've been enjoying seeing him race with us the last couple of Mondays, Lorenzo. It's been very, very fun to see him battling with the likes of Krause and Blocker, and I'm sure he'll be glad to see Blocker take the win here as well.
Absolutely, and hopefully we can see him next week once he actually partakes in the real Barber GP, and let's see if how he'll dabble the oval side. Well, granted, he makes it to the split, of course.
That's a good point. He's got 10,000 I rating on the roadside. Does Agustin Canapino, courtesy of, or almost 10,000, I should say, courtesy of his efforts with Williams Esports, winning the 24 Hours of Daytona earlier this year, in fact, in the very top split. But does he have the overall I rating? Especially since we're going racing at Richmond. Might see a bit of an interesting and mixed up field, but we had a big field of Indy cars here today. 24 saw the green flag, and while only 17 will see the checkered, it was one driver mastering the strategy to come out victorious. It's Adam Blocker in the Powerslide Motorsports car, ending the streak of Phil Krause on road courses, and by 3 seconds, it was a margin of victory assured at the very end. It's going to be a bit of a wait before we get the final step on the podium locked up. It is going to be John Baderfer that holds on, with Brandon Roseborough making it a HydroRace Geodesic third and fourth finish. Great race, Lorenzo. Crazy in many ways, and looking forward to seeing what happens to the rest of the iRacing week.
Absolutely. really interested what's going to happen also in the IndyCar Racing Series, the longer run. You have 90 laps. The setups are going to have to be adjusted for you to, contend with these blown up engines, which for me are first in the broadcast. But Barber delivered, man. And like I said, I love Barber. It's highly technical, but when it delivers, it overtakes in plenty. And looking forward to see how the rest of the week will fare, especially on fixed as well.
Yeah, there's plenty of action to come across of the iRacing Ladder 2. And don't forget that if you want to continue racing, you can come and join us in the iRacing IndyCar Discord and find a race and chat with the drivers and get yourself ready to go. Let's grab a look at the results, though, and get ready then to chat to the drivers. It is Adam Blocker, though, in that Powerslide Motorsports car that's first across the line, sees the checkered flag, 2.9 seconds clear of Phil Kraus for the private label Team Hype. John Badefer and then Brandon Roseborough, Hydra Race Geodesic Racing third and fourth, with Kevin Burrell, the best of the Satellite Racing drivers, in fifth position. Rashad Craig and then Sam Carasala, both moving up 4 spots in front of Andreas Eick, while Jacob Oster and then David Porcelli, the rest of your top 10. 11th for Matt Taylor, 12th for Luke Rosella, and then Richard Holt, Nick Sudik, and Brendan Lichtenberg finish 1 lap down. Lucas Lodato, Brian Carey also find themselves 1 lap adrift, but blowing an engine for Blaze Andrick and Christian Hildgaard. Connor Harrington, unfortunately, in a bit of a mix-up, finishes down in 20th. Did start relatively down in the field as well and had fought his way forward, but finishes still in front of Shady Amar, Tristan Moss, Matt Shumko, and Robert Malechka. I look top to bottom at the race results, and now we can go and I was going to say catch up with your race winner, but still waiting for Adam Blocker to join us. So instead, let's go and chat with John Badefer, who was catching up with Phil Kraus. John, talk us through that one. Started on the alternates. Were you a bit surprised that not many decided to do the same?
Well, a little surprised, but I never get strategy right, so I figured everyone was going to do the opposite of what I did. So, yeah.
So couldn't go wrong in that regard, I guess. Talk us through the call then to come in a little bit early. I guess you were feeling the pain on the tires, wanted to switch over to the primaries. How bad was the fall off for you?
It wasn't bad. Like, I was matching Phil, I think, most of the stint once I got by Adam and Christian. If I didn't have to fight them, I probably would have stayed out longer. But since I didn't have that gap like Phil did from starting ahead of them, then I sort of just had to box and hopefully pull some kind of undercut miracle or something.
It's been great to have Brandon Roseborough join us as well. Third and fourth for Hydra Race Geodesic Racing. How do you feel in terms of that setup balance? We know there's some longer races to come this week. Do you feel like you've got the car dialed in?
Yeah, the car felt pretty good. We've put a lot of work into the setups because I think we just wanted to focus on this a little bit more this year. So to be, hanging with Phil and Adam and Christian and all of them, it kind of speaks to the work that we put in, and hopefully we can keep the tires on it a little bit longer in the next race and qualify better, and we'll see where they fall.
Congratulations on the podium, John, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time as we head back road course racing.
Sounds good. Thanks, Arjuna.
John Badefer jumps in for a quick chat, and we'll make our way to the second step of the podium, where Phil Kraus joins us now. No house here, apparently, at Barber, but Phil, some great racing wheel-to-wheel between you and Adam. I've got to ask how surprised you were to see the rest of the field electing to mostly start on the different tire strategy to you.
Yeah, a little bit, but honestly, I didn't really put the time in pre-race to really check the compounds and see which one was better. I knew Elite ran here a few weeks ago, and the red was preferred, and then last time Lionheart ran here, the red was preferred, so I figured that I didn't really need to check it and the red would be preferred, but safe to say, the red was not preferred. I was pretty close to blowing the left front at the end of my stint on the reds. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. I was at like 30%, but I had lost all front grip. But yeah, good win to Adam. He did a better strategy, and I think he had a faster car in general. I just could not get out of the corner whatsoever, no matter the compound, no matter the fuel situation, no matter anything, really.
Interesting to hear. I've got to ask you as well, how were the air temperatures? Were you ever a little bit concerned because we saw not one but two engines expire just in this top split?
No, not really concerned about the air temp. I don't know why so many people opted to run the 70 inlet. I guess it must be what the default iRacing setup starts with, but Yeah, it was a really hot ambient. I think most of us ran on 54. I think Satellite might have ran a 70 inlet, but yeah, if we ran the 54, there wasn't really a concern on the temps.
Well, congratulations on another great finish, Phil, and looking forward to seeing the action at Richmond in a week's time.
Yep. Cheers, Arjuna.
Phil Kraus joins us from second, and now we can catch up with our race winner, Adam Blocker. And Adam, what a fight it was between you and Phil. Had to get it done on track, wheel to wheel. But talk us through the call to start on the primaries. Why not start on the alternates? Was there a specific reasoning behind that?
To be honest, I really wasn't sure what to do because so in colder weather, like we had in the Indy Elite Series, the reds were better. But this was a pretty high ambient, and I saw the row behind me was starting on blacks, and Phil had reds selected, so I just figured I was going to go off strategy from Phil. Yeah, and it was the main thing that was tough was I was, trying not to get passed by people in reds, but John caught me really fast in the first couple laps, so I basically let him go. And then once we got halfway through the first stint, and I started reeling Phil and John back in, and then once I passed John, I was like, okay, I can win this. My goal was just to get close enough to Phil to when he had to warm up his blacks. I could overcut him, but I could have maybe pitted a lap or two immediately after he pitted, but I just went a little bit longer just in case my reds degged at the end. So that was the only reason. But.
Talk to us a little bit about this track. Of course, streets of Long Beach to the Alabama roller coaster. It's a very different sort of change, but it epitomizes what the challenge is in the NTT IndyCar series. How much of a different swing in terms of setup does it take to bring a car to race around here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different setup package than what we had at Long Beach, obviously. Yeah, honestly, setup-wise, it's not too different to a lot of the other permanent road courses, but if you ran something at Magello, you could probably run it at Barber or a Sonoma setup at Barber or one of those things. But the main thing at Barber is it's a very unique track to drive. It's very easy to overdrive almost all of the corners, and then also you have to be very precise with line placement in almost every corner to maximize the lap. And honestly, I was really surprised that the top three in qualifying, we were all within half a tenth. It shows how competitive it is, because this track normally has bigger time gaps than a lot of tracks because of how technical it is. But
kind of told us that we were in for a good race, and a good race indeed. Congratulations on the win, Adam. Looking forward to seeing you hopefully back on track when we're going oval racing in a week's time from Richmond Raceway.
Yep, yeah. See you then, and just thanks to everybody at Powerslide for the work on the setup, and yeah, thanks to you guys for calling all the races that we have, and yeah, thanks everybody for the good race. See you in Richmond.
That was one for the ages between Phil Kraus and Adam Blocker, and I think next week at Richmond it should be quite fun as we get ready to go from a very, very unique oval. America's premier short track. It's just 0.75 miles. Lorenzo, we're talking 14 degrees of banking through the turns, and the race lap record set back in 2004 of 16 seconds, 169 miles an hour in an Indy car.
Yeah, which is insane. Just 16 seconds, you can barely blink. It's like you blink and you already done a lap. It's going to be interesting. Those who come out of firm track positioning, I think over here is going to be more important than everything, Arjuna, because of the dirty area and all. So looking forward to see how this one will go.
Yeah, the other thing, right, is that you end up going 2 laps down if you do come down pit lane. So that's something else that you do very much have to keep in mind. eNASCAR comes here as a bit of a staple. The stock cars race very, very differently, though, to how the open wheelers will race. And I can tell you that it is one of those tracks that is a favorite for many of the drivers. And we will be racing under the day sunshine rather than under the night light, so that's bound to bring some intrigue of its own. Quick look at the schedule as we wrap things up here from Barber. Of course, after this, still 5 fascinating weeks to go, leading us into the month of May. Indianapolis beckons and awaits for us, but Lorenzo, before we get there, still some great racing left to come. The iRacing Indy 500 at the very end of the month, as drivers will focus on our race at Belle Isle and trying to qualify for the iRacing Indy 500. I can't wait for it. It's going to be special.
It's going to be special. I'm going to love everything that is riding already on this month of May and this setup for the Indy 500, and cap it off at Belle Isle is one of the favorite tracks that for everyone to drive. hard track, but fair track for you to drive on and cap off the season. Love it.
Yeah, you can't complain about the schedule, that is for sure. It's so good to have the real IndyCar Series tracks available for us to use as well. But as we round up here from the Alabama roller coaster, it's only temporarily. The paddock stays here for the rest of the week, not just for the real cars to hit the track this weekend, but with the rest of the action to take place over the course of the iRacing week. For our team here at RaceSpotTV, thank you so much for joining us. Lorenzo Bonder alongside myself, Arjuna Kankiparty, signing off from Barber and looking forward to Richmond in 7 days' time.